Shalom, shalom, everybody. Once again, it is your Brewbon Shemayim back with another one. Today's video is going to be the actual audio to the video that I was speaking of the Gentiles, where I was just speaking last week. I dropped it. I was speaking of the Gentiles, but it didn't have no audio. Now, I did record the audio, recording wise, for whatever reason. I tried to upload it again. YouTube will not allow me to upload it with the audio. So I cut these other images off of YouTube and did it this way so you could at least get the audio. If you want a correction to the things that he said wrong, go back to the previous video. I'll have his face on the cover. Shalom.
Just fine. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there shall ye be sold to your enemies for bondwomen and bondmen, and no man shall buy you. That's one of their biggest. That's one of their biggest Bible verses that they use. They believe that is about the transatlantic slave trade. They believe most of Deuteronomy 28 is about the transatlantic slave trade. Now, if you read that very closely, it does say no man will buy you. But I was gonna get into the breakdown.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I was. I didn't know when you wanted me to. Solomon, look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me, and they made me the keeper of the vineyards. But mine own vineyard have I kept not. This is not Solomon speaking. This is the woman Solomon is sleeping with speaking. Right. I don't know how this gets misunderstood, but 1 Kings chapter 11 verse 1 through 2 tells you that Solomon was sleeping with a bunch of different women from a bunch of different countries. So yeah, this woman definitely could have been black, but there's no way to prove this woman was an Israelite.
You also have this passage in Song of Songs, which is a highly allegorical representation of the communication between God and the Jewish people. That's how it's understood in the rabbinic tradition. And this passage here, the figure representing the Jewish people says, Shechora ani v'na'ava, which is translated, I am black, but comely, or but beautiful. That vav, v'na'ava, and comely, or but comely, could be translated as an and or a but the context here implies that it is a but, meaning I am different, I am black, but nevertheless I am beautiful. And most importantly, this is a metaphor referring to the entire Jewish people. So it's hard to be any more inside than that, despite the difference in skin color. So that's to some.
Also, there's like later on in the Song of Solomon, she is actually describing Solomon and like describes him as like she the characterization is like alabaster, and ivory.
Yeah,
that's one that now I imagine that probably the white Hebrew Israelites take that way far.
They love that one.
Right. But it's just kind of one of those that's like, well, how would the black Hebrew Israelite explain that?
Typically they don't. But and that's just me speaking from experience. But also when you look at how Solomon was described, he was described as ruddy. And so when we look at things that are called ruddy in the Bible, a good example of this is the red heifer. And so the red heifer is not black. The red heifer is like a reddish brownish color. And which that fits perfectly in with what the Israelites most likely would have looked like living in the Middle East.
Right. It kind of a what like people like Ken Ham would call like a middle brown.
Right, exactly.
Yep. And do you have one more?
I do have one more. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. They use this to prove that the people who claim to be Israelites are not Israelites. They use this to say that the Jewish people of today are not real Jews. Yeah, we'll just read that.
This one we're pretty familiar with.
And this one's actually pretty easily explained if you know the Bible. But yeah, I'll have no problem breaking this one down. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. This is actually explained in Romans chapter 2, verse 27 through 29. I don't know if you want to bring that up or not, but this is not Jesus coming out and saying there's a bunch of Edomites claiming to be Jews. This is not what happening here.
Romans 2.
Verse 27 through 29.
All right. And we'll just keep it with the KJV for the sake of consistency.
Yeah. Yeah, so Jesus is not pointing out that people of another ethnicity are claiming to be Jewish. He's essentially pointing out that the Jews of that day are not living like Jews are supposed to live, is the best way I can explain it. So it says, and shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision does transgress the law. For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God. And see, when you read that, it becomes very clear who Jesus was talking to. A Jew is not somebody who is simply who simply comes from the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's